I'm about to share my entire curriculum with you. Hello historians and welcome back. I'm Cecilia Tamez and I help overwhelmed history teachers transform into confident facilitators of learning. So this was actually a very highly requested video over on my Instagram, and if you don't follow me yet, make sure you do. My handle is right up here. It's at Game Plan Edu Solutions, and be sure to follow me so that you can vote in polls for upcoming video requests. So as many of you may or may not know, I was an 8th grade history teacher for 9 years. I taught 7th grade history, Texas history 1 year. I also taught American history 1301 and 1302 at the university level for 6 years. And of course, I coached teachers and districts. So I've had my fair share of teaching adventures. However, in this video, I'm gonna be giving you a rundown of my 8th grade US history curriculum because that is what I've taught the longest. And this is great if you work at a campus or a school district that literally has zero guidance on where to start with teaching your course. Okay, and also before we start, quick disclaimer, clearly going through every single detail of my curriculum would make for like a 5-hour video or longer. So this video is going to give you an overview of some of the most frequently troublesome areas to figure out for a new teacher. Things like time frame suggestions, an overview of the content and the depth, as well as some sample activities for each unit. Now, if you're looking to save time with creating any of these activities and need something pre-made and ready to use, check out my website, thegameplanedusolutions.com, and I'll go ahead and set the link down below for your history resource needs. So let's jump right in. So in this first unit, students typically learn about the process of exploration and colonization in the Americas. However, it is very important that we create historical context for our students to understand life in the Americas before exploration. Also allow students to understand the push and pull factors that prompted exploration, as well as the consequence of European immigration to the Western Hemisphere. So this unit of exploration and colonization typically takes about 30 days, give or take. This time frame is subject to change, obviously, depending on your needs, and also if you have certain time limits set forth by a curriculum that you might have or by a state test that you might have as well. So one of the activities that I like doing for this particular unit that I feel really covers all of the learning outcomes as far as differentiating between the 3 colonial regions is a colonial sorting activity. So typically I have like a poster size map of the 13 colonies, and there are several ways that you can do this. I like to group my students into collaborative teams. You can also, especially if you're crunched for time, you can laminate the poster to make it like dry erase friendly. Put the political, social, economic, geographical characteristics up on your projector screen, and then, make it a game or a contest and have students sort the terms into the 3 main colonial regions. Or if you're planning way in advance, and if you do have the time, you can also make images with words, with terms of the characteristics that are actual little cards that the students can sort into the different colonial regions. So in this unit, students typically learn what led to the American Revolution, like why it took place, the important events leading up to the war, important documents, philosophical ideas, and people that were involved in the American Revolution, as well as the social, political, geographic changes after the war. Approximate time, 30 days. So for the French and Indian War particularly, I like to do some direct instruction with strategic storytelling. And if you want to know how to apply that strategy, be sure to watch my video, The Lost Art of Direct Instruction, and I'll link it up above and down below for you in the description to watch after you're done watching this video. My students also really enjoy an activity that we do where students create skits on the causes of the American Revolution, which they then present to the class and basically reteach to their peers the events leading up to the American Revolution. Also, since we're discussing the Declaration of Independence, we usually conduct like a Socratic seminar, and then we close with film clips on the battles, and also by learning and reiterating notable folks of the American Revolution by playing a couple rounds of bingo. So this unit is all about US government, the documents, the people, the philosophies, the inspiration for our government, as well as how it functions and why and how it was established. Approximate time, 30 days. So this unit has a lot of information, and it's not particularly in sequential order. It's very challenging to create a chronology for this particular unit. So to help create a sequence and help students really merge all the ideologies together that are constructing our government, I like to host a constitutional convention in which we role play and journey sequentially through the creation of government. So within this convention, we write speeches for and against the ratification of the Constitution. I direct teach some parts. We also watch some film clips to help students have an immersive experience. And I also highly leverage music in this unit to help support learners with basic recall. So in this unit, students will learn all about the notable policies and events that have shaped the office of the presidency of the United States, as well as personal leadership qualities of each president. Now, it's also important that we create context for our learners by exposing students to presidential biographies so that our students understand, for all their accomplishments, our presidents were people with faults just like us. And that to truly understand history, we have to humanize and see these people for who they really were. Approximate teaching time, 26 days. So this particular unit is a combination of direct instruction, video clips, reading, and a lot of graphic organizers to create those scaffolds for students and really to create space for them to process what they're learning. And if you want to see some of the graphic organizers that I use in this lesson, make sure to hop on over and check out my website. One of my favorite activities to do for this particular unit is kind of like a previewing activity where students will watch a short biography, or maybe they'll read a story, and they'll essentially brain dump all the details and all the characteristics and all the policies that were made during that particular presidency from a variety of sources. And then based on all the ideas, students will summarize a narrative of what this president was actually like. So in this unit, students are going to learn about the policies, events, and political ideologies of President Andrew Jackson. So suggested teaching time for this is going to be about 5 days. So when it comes to Jackson's presidency, there's actually a video that I like to show, and it's not very modern. It even looks a bit pixelated. But it is very aligned to some notable events that take place during Jackson's presidency and that help you actually pre-teach some of the content for the following unit. Now, if you want to check it out, I know there's a lot of other really good films on Andrew Jackson, but if you want to check out the video that I'm talking about, I'll go ahead and link it in the description below. Now, just as a side note, especially if you're a brand new history teacher, videos often cover a lot of superficial information. So you definitely want to make sure that you're doing all the pausing, all the discussion. This is literally maybe like a 38-minute video, and I can definitely make that into at least a 3-hour class. You also want to ask the right questions to help your students deconstruct some of these events. One closing activity that I like to do for this, that I've done certain years, is hosting a newscast or a talk show type project in which my students work collaboratively to essentially summarize notable events of Jackson's presidency, as well as, potentially coming up with higher order questions to evaluate his contributions as president. So in this unit, students will learn how we transitioned from cottage industry to the factory system, how that affected urbanization as well as immigration, which in turn affected westward expansion. Students will also learn about social reform movements in the time before the Civil War. Approximate time, 20 to 30 days, and in my experience, it definitely leans more towards the 30 days. This is by far the largest, most extensive unit with the least amount of chronology. So I start this off by doing like a little mini introduction to the concept of manifest destiny. And we do this through the analysis of course, John Gast's painting, American Progress. I also coordinate an industry fair. Students visit different stations around the classroom and they either watch or listen to, read, or are directly taught by me about certain industrial innovations while answering questions. Because there were so many innovations dealing with transportation, with agriculture, communication, I find this the most effective way to cover all that information quickly. And by quickly, I mean like maybe 2 weeks. Now, this is definitely doable so long as you are confident in your ability to facilitate an activity like this, because typically my class sizes were pretty large. So when teaching, I was literally orchestrating about 8 different groups rotating around the room. And to be quite honest with you, I don't know that I would have been entirely prepared to do something like that my first year teaching. Now, if you're looking for additional support because you really want to feel confident in making your classroom just a little bit more student-centered in terms of instruction and management, feel free to get in touch with me at the link below at Teach Like an Influencer Academy. Submit your interest form and let's chat about the ways that I can support you this school year. In this short unit, students will learn about the unique cultural identity that had been formed in the United States prior to the Civil War, as well as understanding and reviewing the political, social, economic, geographic differences between the North and the South prior to the Civil War, as well as understanding and recapping the social, political, economic, geographic differences between the North and the South and the compromises that had prevented the war for so long. Approximate teaching time between 5 and 15 days. Okay, this unit is by far one of the most enjoyable units for me to teach. So I like to keep the lessons pretty simple. One thing I do to teach the art, the literature, the music of the time is to show and really analyze these pieces to understand the identity that had been forming starting from the colonial period all the way up until the Civil War. I also like doing an activity for sectionalism that's quite similar to the colonial sort. So one quick gem that I have to share with you is that if you strike gold with a certain lesson delivery format, reuse that format and just plug in the new content. Works like a charm. In this unit, students will learn the root cause of the Civil War, the events leading up to the Civil War, as well as notable figures, decrees, places, speeches, and strategies, all related to the Civil War. Approximate teaching time between 5 and 10 days. So for this particular unit, there's a lot of reading, so reading excerpts or listening to excerpts or speeches and things like that, that really, it's kind of like the unit to tie all the events together. Really coming back full circle for students to have those like aha moments. This is why it's so important that when we plan, we ultimately think of the questions that our students need to be able to answer and then plan our units in reverse so we can analyze exactly where we can insert references of what is coming up and really help students build that context and understanding. This is also something that I share and cover in my Teacher Self-Paced program, Teach Like an Influencer Academy. And again, if you're curious about that, the link is in the description down below. For this lesson, it's so important to harp on the significance of how this war changed life in America. One of the ideas that I want to close with for this unit that I feel is not emphasized enough in historical education and historical studies is the continuity of historical events on our present lives. I feel like more often than not, sometimes history is taught in a way that seems like this moment in history is dead and a story that's in the past and it has nothing to do with the present. But everything in the past has to do with the present. And this is a great moment, this is a great unit and opportunity to actually help students realize that history builds our present. In this unit, students will learn about the aftermath of the Civil War, namely how it changed the United States politically, socially, economically, and geographically. Approximate teaching time, about 15 days. I liked to keep it simple and interesting because typically our students were just mentally done with school, or if you're preparing for a state test like we were, students are typically just burnt out from all the reviews and interventions. So for this lesson, I like using Nearpod as well as some chants to help students remember the Reconstruction amendments. I'm also a huge fan of showing video clips from the television series Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, because believe it or not, it has a lot of episodes that are aligned to the Reconstruction period, even though it takes place in the West. I highly recommend the episode The First Circle, which is about the continued racial violence and discrimination experienced by Blacks in post-Civil War America. And another really good episode to show for this particular unit is called Washita, which illustrates the shady and devastating ways that the country continued to expand westward, infringing on Native American lands. If you found this video helpful and would like to be one of the first teachers to know when new ready-made resources become available, be sure to join the History Teacher Help Hotline newsletter in the link down below. I want your success. I'm rooting for you. Until next time, class dismissed.